All right, welcome back, everyone, to the W Sports Podcast. It is take number 3 to get this thing rolling. We have had every tech issue imaginable, but you know what? The sports world moves on, and so we're figuring it out. Different mic, different link, different YouTube setup. So, yeah, thanks, everyone. If you tried to jump on the last two, apologies. This is the correct one. We're not going nowhere at this point, but the NFL season is back, so this is our draft preview episode. So, the best co-host in the business, Tubby, is back at it again with his draft analysis. Jimothy, that's myself, and we're going to be here for this whole journey of what quarterback your team shouldn't take, what offensive line is not going to be a bust, and so on. You know what? You've probably already seen a lot of the videos from Tubby the last couple of weeks, so we're going to dive deep into it this week. But Tubby, welcome back, man. It's draft season.
It is draft season. I am so excited. I'm so ready for the next couple days, this coming week. I don't think people realize how excited I am.
Avid listeners, they might have a chance.
That's
They've
true.
they've seen your passion when it comes to the combine week, which I feel like that's almost like, hey, spring training is here for baseball season. Combine
Yeah.
week is spring training for the draft season. It is just a ton of fun. So we're gonna get into all of the draft prospects, draft previews, and here's what I'd love to do. Everybody in the chat, if you have your favorite team and a player that you want in the first round, late round, something that you're seeing that you think might click, put that in the chat. I would love to throw it out to Tubby, see what he thinks, and keep on moving this thing forward and talking about sports, because that's what the W Sports Podcast is all about. But quick random thing before we jump in, Tubby, if that's okay with you. It is football
Go for it.
related.
Hey, I'm
Okay.
all for it.
All right. And it's Oklahoma related. So I
Okay.
think that's a good thing. Oklahoma just got a center from SMU. I know
Yep.
it's not a big name, but it was the best center in the market of the transfer portal. They just got that
Mm-hmm.
center from SMU, Branson Hickman. I mean, that sounds like an offensive lineman.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that was a big need for Oklahoma
Mm-hmm.
along that offensive line. Was losing uh, Andrew Ryan was kind of odd. I was shocked that he entered the draft. I thought he needed another year to prove himself. And so when he left, it kind of left a hole there. Everett, who was supposed to take over, he got hurt during spring practices already. You've got Josh Bates in there, which I have high hopes for Bates. I think he can turn into a really good center at some point. But the center position is kind of one of those positions that is lacking along that offensive line. I mean, you got a
Mm-hmm.
completely rebuilt offensive line. You've got, I think, one guy back from last year that actually started a game.
Yeah. Yeah, it. I mean, it's a big signing for what they had, and there's not going to be any
Yeah.
other any other guys really enter the portal this part that are going to really move the needle. So it's a big
Mm-hmm.
deal. He hasn't allowed any sacks in all of his snaps there, so that was cool.
Yeah.
Drove all the way out to St. Louis yesterday with a friend of mine to go see the Cardinals get blown out 12-5. I mean, but here's the cool thing. This my friend. He's never been to Busch Stadium. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
and he wasn't a huge proponent of downtown stadiums, but he's the second friend I've had in the last 2 weeks that has seen it and experienced it and said, "No, Kansas City needs a downtown stadium. There's something special about that." And that seats 45,000 plus
Mm-hmm.
at Busch Stadium, and it is baseball heaven. I will say that, despite the baseball they're playing is not heaven. Um, the just the atmosphere of you can get 35,000 fans in a downtown stadium with a beautiful skyline like PNC Park. I mean,
Yeah.
it is great. And then, so yeah, that was fun. That was my weekend, man.
Awesome. I mean, that's a lot better than my weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did
I
any
mean,
sports involved in your weekend though? Did you watch any of the NBA playoffs yesterday?
I actually watched parts of the Mavs game today, but not a whole lot. I
Mhm.
watched some. I watched the OU spring game yesterday.
Absolutely.
Obviously, I watched a couple spring games. I watched part of the Texas spring game. Watched a little bit of the
Wow.
UFL. I just wanted to see what
Yeah.
they look like.
Absolutely.
That's secondary. Yikes.
We'll get to that in the future episode for sure. I'm, but here's the thing. That's why most of us as sports fans, we will look at our team's spring game. We will look at our
Mhm.
teams every single week. But Tubby doesn't do that. Tubby's out there. He's scouting because he's curious and he wants to know. But not only that, he also wants to know when it comes to the NFL draft season. He's like, I've been watching this person since spring, and since you guys have been hanging with us, you'll know that is true, and that's what I love about that. So, Tubby, it is draft season. Well, let's just cut to the chase. We're gonna get to this. This is a QB dominated storyline
Yeah.
draft, but this is give me this draft compared to as an overall picture, the last, let's say, 10 drafts, where would this one rank as far as talent goes? Maybe depth? Is it top end heavy? I mean, for someone who's just now checking into the draft because, life's been busy, what should they know about this draft?
So are we talking the whole draft, not just
Mm-hmm.
the whole draft? This is honestly, from my recollection, from since I've been watching the draft, this is right up there with one of the best drafts depth wise that I've
Mm-hmm.
ever seen. The amount of players in this draft that are going to get drafted and help teams are going to be it's going to be pretty crazy. I mean, it's going to be one of those drafts. I've said it multiple times where you look at day 3, 5th, 6th, 7th round picks and you're just like, man, how did that kid? How is he still there?
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking offensive line and wide receivers. There's a couple really good late round defensive tackles that
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty high on. There's some good late round running backs and linebackers. This is a draft where if you have a chance to get more draft capital, you do it because you want them for this year because there's so much great talent in this year's draft. I mean, I have somewhere around about 45 first round grades on players.
That
There's
is stacked.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of these guys that you look at, like a Kingsley Suamatia from linebacker from BYU. In most drafts, this guy we're probably talking about him being the second, third best offensive tackle in the draft, and he's probably sitting somewhere around 7th or 8th in this year's draft.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with the wide receivers. I mean, I think that there's probably going to be close to 20 wide receivers taken in the first 3 rounds.
I don't know. Is that a record? I mean, that just feels like an absurdly high number.
Yeah. I mean, I know the record for most in the first round, I think, is 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
And that was back 2004, 2005-ish. And I think that there's a chance that we could see that number this year. And the second round wide receivers, it's going to be the same thing. Third round wide receivers, it's going to be the same thing. I mean, you're going to see wide receivers in day 3 where you're going to go, man, that guy has potential to be a number 2 wide receiver. And we're talking about him getting drafted 4th, 5th, 6th round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so not only are you seeing the top end talent is there, you say 45 first round draft grades, and there's only 32 teams. So that is so that means you have an early day 2 pick. You're still feeling pretty good about what's on the board, most likely. Teams like Chicago, they don't have a whole lot of picks in day 2, and so the possibility of them trading down one of those, I think it's the 9th pick. The 9th pick that they have right now, possibly to get a second day pick would be huge. The Browns, I believe, are another one of those teams that just are lacking in some of the picks. Even though they're a talented team, that's some of those things that you could even see. So again, anyone, if your team is out there, if you're feeling good about the picks because you're loaded with them, you don't have a first round pick, know that like the Panthers, you don't got a first round pick the way it's set up right now. But day 2, there's still going to be some talent left on the board as you start that draft out. But there are some teams that need so many different pieces.
Yeah.
Should you feel more comfortable with a talent pool like this of like best player available, or are you still, even if you're a team like the Chargers or the Panthers, I already mentioned those. If you're one of those teams, is this more of, no, we need to go after specific needs, or early on those first 2 days, we're going best player available?
I mean, it just depends. I mean, on their mindset, really. It's hard to get into the minds of some of these GMs, but for me, if I'm the Panthers, at least I know my 2 biggest needs are offensive tackle and wide receiver, which are the 2 deepest positions in this year's draft. So you could probably draft best available, and it would probably be one of those 2 positions. So for them, it's not too bad for them. Now, like the Chargers, you've got a different scenario there because you do, like you said, you have so many needs. You have needs on the defensive side, offensive line. Your wide receiver group is pretty bleak, after this off season. So for them, I think that they probably don't go best available. I mean, I still think that he'll be quite, right up there if it's, Malik Neighbors or somehow Marvin Harrison ends up being the guy.
Yeah.
But you could argue Joe Alt is a top 3, top 4 player in this year's draft, and Malik Neighbors is probably somewhere around 6th or 7th. So it's
Yep.
not a big discrepancy there. So you could probably go, we need wide receiver more, because at that point you take Joe Alt. Joe Alt hasn't really shown the ability to play on the right side of the offensive line. More than likely, you're not going to take Rashawn Slater and move him to the right side when he's been an all-pro caliber left tackle. So that could be another situation where they're like, the linemen at that position, at that spot in the draft, don't quite line up with where we would need them to play. So let's go ahead and draft our future number 1 wide receiver.
What are you talking about? If you're the Chargers, you already have that Quentin Williams, right?
Quentin Johnson.
Quentin Johnson. Sorry, I said Williams. Yeah, I knew it was wrong when I said it, but Quentin Johnson.
That dude. We talked about that last year. We were both very.
We had the
low.
receipts.
Yeah, very low on him, and so far he's proved us right.
Yes, he definitely hasn't had a big game. And here's what I would say: you have new coaches in new places, and some of them are building from the ground up. Some don't have bad pieces already. I will say Jim Harbaugh has the best quarterback of any of the new coaches, at least that's stepping into the position. But he doesn't have a good team, and they have cleaned out some of the receivers. Johnson is their best wide receiver, but that guy's going either he's going to take a running back too early, or he's going to take an offensive line and a tight end. Like that is the way this coach goes. But he gets results. He's taken his team at both levels to the championship game, and he's even won the college football championship at this point. But so you can't knock it if he does go Joe Alt.
No,
I mean,
no, not at all.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I mean, why are we upset about? I mean, that's still a good pick, but it's just like, when you think draft, you think all of the reset, like how you get your team, a team like the Bears, who went 7-10 last year, and we're slightly competitive. And now they're gonna take Caleb Williams. I mean, if it's not 2 seconds off the clock, the pick is in. I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah,
this is more known than Mario Williams, who signed a deal before the draft even happened the year with Vince Young and Reggie Bush. Like it was like, no, we already know.
Yeah.
So this is a QB named dominant draft, right? So there's going to be some of those are the things that people are talking about. There's going to be picks that don't make sense. I would love to know, like, I mean, maybe we have 10 picks, right? Top 10. How many of these quarterbacks that we're talking about do you think actually land in that top 10, whether they're traded up for to get or where they end up landing?
Yeah. So I think for sure we know the top 3. Top 3 are going to be quarterbacks. I'm a little bit on the page where I feel like the JJ McCarthy noise is more kind of a smokescreen right now. Where I don't know if it's so much about teams jumping that far up to number 4 is because rarely are you going to see 4 quarterbacks go right off the bat.
1, 2, 3, 4,
you're just not going to see that. Yeah, we've seen 1, 2, 3 before. A couple of years ago, we had Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson. We had those 3 guys go top 3. So
a deep quarterback class right there.
Yeah. I mean, so I could definitely see a team like the Giants or even the Chargers trading back, and maybe a team like the Vikings or even the Raiders. The Broncos, I don't think they have enough draft capital to move up to get inside the top 10. But I could see one of those 2 teams moving up and get in, maybe taking McCarthy closer to the 6-7, 5-6-7 range. But I don't know. There's always a smokescreen when it comes to quarterbacks in the drafts. Last year it was Will Levis. It was almost guaranteed. Everyone thought Will Levis was going to be drafted by the Colts because that's what everything was coming out. And Will Levis is the guy. And a couple of years ago it was Malik Willis. He's going to go be top 10. He ends up getting drafted in the 3rd round. Not saying McCarthy's going to go that low, but if McCarthy made it outside the top 10, I wouldn't be that shocked.
Yeah. Well, and that's what some people are saying. Assuming, someone's going to trade probably top 10 to get it. The Vikings have been one of the big names that have been linked to them. And they're at 11, I think, right now. So they're just
11 and 23. So they've got 2.
So they definitely potentially can trade up and make that happen. But here's what I want you to know. So it sounds like you're saying is potentially 4 in the
4.
first 10, right?
I think there's a potential maybe 5. There has been some murmurs today that Michael Penix Jr. is not out of the realm of possibility for the Falcons at number 8.
Wow.
Even though they just signed Kirk Cousins to a massive contract.
Yeah.
There's talks that they are very high on Michael Penix. So do I think they do it? Probably not, but they are the team that drafted a running back number 8 last year. So, and it wasn't really a big need for them. Tyler Algier that year had a great rookie season. Mm-hmm. So maybe they're looking towards the future going, Kirk tore the Achilles. Maybe there's potential that he has he just doesn't find it again. And now at least we have our guy. I doubt it. I still think that they go defensive end or a corner. They definitely need something, or even a wide receiver.
On the defensive side.
Yeah, quarterback's not the biggest need for that team right now.
Yeah, not when you have a guy like correct me if I'm wrong. If you really wanted to think that maybe you wanted to get a young quarterback at some point in this draft, go after a guy like Michael Pratt, right? Who, again, he's going to be a late round pick, but he is, to me, he's this year's Caleb Tune, right? Caleb Tune, I think.
Clayton Tune.
Clayton Tune. Thank you. I'm not going to get these names right, but leave it to Tubby to nail it every single time. Clayton Tune. How everyone loved the potential, just the mechanics, all that stuff. But the reality is, he's probably a Jacoby Brissett type quarterback. Like, he's probably just going to be a back, and that's good. If I have Jacoby Brissett as my backup, I'm feeling pretty comfortable. But I feel like that's what the Michael Pratt is, and that's a better fit when you have Kirk Cousins. You spent so much money on that.
I would be very shocked if they spent a first round pick on Michael Penix Jr. at number 8 after he just paid Kirk Cousins $140 million. I just don't see it happening.
So much money. That dude has made more money than Tom Brady, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but I definitely believe that I think there's a very good chance that there'll be 4 in the top 10 and probably close to 5 in the top 15.
5 in the top. So is the 5th one Nix? You said, for sure, right? Or Bo Nix, Penix.
It will be McCarthy. McCarthy's going to be one of those more than likely. It's my guess. I know there's a lot of teams that are high on Nix, but I don't think a lot of them have him as a first round grade. I think most of them are mid-second round. Yeah.
So tell me, who do you think shouldn't be? Are these all of these first round grade quarterbacks?
I don't think McCarthy is. So we've talked about this. Yeah. I'm just not sold on JJ McCarthy right now.
Yeah.
I think he absolutely needed one more year in college to prove that he could go out there and be the guy. Because he never proved that once throughout this season, where he was the guy that they relied on to go out there and get that win. It was always the offensive line and the run game, and he was never put in that situation where he was pressured to, show what he actually had. So I still have a lot of concerns about him. I think Penix is definitely a first round grade. Nix, I don't quite have him there. I have him ranked, I think, somewhere around the 56 mark. So not quite a first round, but it's an early second round grade. I think that he is someone that fits the NFL today, with the short intermediate passes, the accuracy that he has in those passes. So yeah, I'm not sold on McCarthy like a lot of people are.
I think same thing. Yeah, neither of us have been, but I've been holding this back for this episode, and I am out on Penix and Bo Nix probably for the same reason. What year did they start playing college football?
2018.
2018. What year is it now? It's 2024. So, and I get part of that was injuries, red shirts, and then obviously the COVID year allowed that. And so what we have seen over the last 2 years specifically for these guys is them to essentially take their game and be above everybody else. Like there's something about it. Like they click, they know the system better. And then I think to myself, how is this possible? And then I think back to when I was, how old are they now? How old is Penix was born in?
24.
Yeah. If they're 23, 24 years old, the guys they're playing in a lot of these schools are 18 and 19, maybe 20. how much smarter were you at the game of football, even if you weren't playing it, but you just understood it better, you understood the timing better, you were faster, stronger, quicker, smarter, all that stuff when you were 2 or 3 years older. And that's the thing is I think we've seen them elevate their game above everybody else because they've been in it longer than anybody else. And
Yeah.
so to me, especially Bo Nix is the one I would rather have Michael Penix, and I don't
Yeah.
necessarily see him as an NFL quarterback. These two guys go to the UFL and dominate, light it up, get some eyes on it. I think that'd be a ton of fun. It's not going to happen. That's not where the money's at. That's not where they want to be, and I'm fine with that. But for me, neither of these guys, maybe I eat my words on this one. I don't see it long term having the success that people want because they've dominated. That's the one
Mm-hmm.
thing that JJ McCarthy has going for him, as he's still
Yeah.
super young, and so he's the Mitchell Trubisky that. Well, he hadn't had to, but he has all the tangibles, the tools that we want. Now, it didn't work out for
Mm-hmm.
him, but
Yeah.
that's where I'm at. That's my take. That's my hot take, and I'm glad that we don't agree. We agree on too much stuff. Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get you. I get what you're saying for sure. My
Yeah.
thing with Penix and Nix is that one of the biggest things I look for in quarterbacks is your accuracy, your smarts. And the good thing for them is that I think at least at worst you've got two really good backup quarterbacks,
Mm-hmm.
which that's not where you're drafted in the first round. You're not drafting a backup quarterback, so
Mm-hmm.
it's understandable if teams are somewhat scared. I mean, Michael Penix has a lot of injury history behind him,
Mm-hmm.
and he was banged up at the end of last year, so
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely raises some concerns. I just think that they are too, or at least Penix for sure, is such a gifted passer of the football that it's hard to think that he can't succeed at least somewhat
Yeah.
in the NFL, even if it is, like a Jacoby Brissett. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
granted, we're not drafting Jacoby Brissett's in the first round. That's not what we're looking for. But
Mm-hmm.
honestly, like I said, there's a chance that maybe like
Mm-hmm.
Penix, McCarthy, these guys are all smokescreens. That people are just saying that to potentially get guys to teams to try to move up
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
go. Oh, that's our guy. We better move up to get him real quick.
Yeah.
And
Teams
these
like the
teams,
Broncos.
yeah, or the Raiders. I mean, or if you're the Broncos and you're sitting there and yeah, you need a quarterback, but if a team calls you up and they're like, hey, we want to come up and get JJ McCarthy, or we want to come up and
Mm-hmm.
get Michael Penix Jr. You don't have a whole lot of draft capital.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking it. I'm taking the trade. Give me. I don't care who my quarterback is right now. I don't care what we got going on here. Quarterback, yeah, is a need, but we need a lot more than just a quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know. Here's the thing. I say this about they started in the league in college, 2018. Jaden Daniels is 2019. But I will say the big difference between him early on was he was already performing at a high level his first year
Mm-hmm.
before he got hurt, and then the terrible coaching at Arizona State when he transferred. But
Yeah.
so that's my 2 cents on why Jaden Daniels isn't the exact same. But to me, it's the top two guys. It's Caleb Williams and Drake May. Jaden Daniels is a solid guy. I just don't know how high is the ceiling ultimately based off of how long he's been in college. I think he'll be good, but I think Caleb Williams just looks like if he has a competitive fire in him, he's going to be great. Drake May, I'm a little bit worried about like how he hasn't necessarily consistently won, so he almost
Mm-hmm.
strikes me as like a Justin Herbert type guy.
Yeah. That's
So, which isn't
exactly
bad.
that's exactly who I have him comped as. A lot of people have Josh Allen. I have him as Justin Herbert, where a guy that maybe he didn't perform as well in college, and part of that could be due to the people around him, and he's going to be better in the NFL. But I think I'm big on Jaden Daniels. I think that we've seen Jaden Daniels get better every year as a passer. We always knew he was a great athletic running quarterback, but we
Mhm.
have seen him progress as a passer through each year he's gotten better. So I think that he'll take that even further, step next year and going into the NFL. But I think Drake May needs to go somewhere where he can sit a year. He's got a lot of mechanical issues in his game, footwork wise and uh, certain reading of the field. He's not, super great at processing the field
Mhm.
right now. So I think that for him, Drake May's best spot is New England. You've got Jacoby Brissett there right now. You signed him as free agent. go out, take Drake May, set him behind Brissett for a whole year.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let him play unless you absolutely have to. Something happens to Jacoby, because we know Jacoby can be a decent quarterback in the NFL. We've seen it, over the past few years with the Colts and with the Browns. Whenever with the whole Deshaun Watson situation,
Play better than Deshaun.
and it's not like in New England you're sitting there going, "Oh, we got to win this year."
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a good point, because they are a culture right now, at least, of patience does work. Now, give me the last time you saw a top 3 quarterback wait a whole year.
Yeah,
That's the problem. And I think
that
if
is
even when the Chiefs took Patrick Mahomes, and he sat the whole year behind Alex Smith, the whole year. But the difference was he had Alex Smith played playoff caliber football, but it worked out. But they didn't take him top 3, and that's the hard part. Is there's so much pressure. So if you do that early on, it has to be like, hey, like he has to know when you call him and say, hey, we're going to draft you, man, and this is what it's going to look like. Don't stress. We got you. We're in this for your career, not the season. And then even let the fans know. Otherwise, I think it could be a disaster. But man, that's it. I do like that fit better. I just think it's just more of the style. I mean, we've already seen that. Even they went after Mac Jones. They really like Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi.
Yeah.
Maybe Drake May just fits.
Well, at least the thing for Drake May is he's actually athletic. The kid can actually move in and out of the pocket. He does have a much stronger arm than both Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi. He has a much higher ceiling than both those guys. It's just he needs to refine his skills, and that doesn't come with playing with that team that they have right now. Yeah, and the biggest thing with all these young quarterbacks is a lot of it is what you have around them, the structure you have around them. You don't have a great offensive line. You got a solid running back in Ramondre Stevenson. You don't have a good wide receiver group. No. You don't have a good tight end. You don't have a whole lot good for him right now. So we saw it last year with Bryce Young. They threw him to the wolves because they kind of had to at that point. You drafted number 1, and the kid just absolutely got destroyed because the offensive line was terrible. He didn't really have a run game. He didn't really have a wide receiver group. He doesn't have a tight end. So you need to be able to draft him, let him sit, and build the team around him so where next year he'll have a chance at more success than he would this year.
Yeah. If they're not careful, they're going to miss another top the Panthers. They're going to mess up another top 3 round quarterback. Now, obviously, Matt Corral is not the same, but as Bryce Young. But I'm just saying, starts to become a thing. So, all right. So now we talked a lot about the quarterbacks. Is there a late round quarterback that if you're looking for a team just to take that might sneak into a starting lineup this season, who is that going to be?
I don't know. I think a guy like Michael Pratt could potentially see something, just because he's a sound quarterback. He doesn't make mistakes. I think Sam Hartman could be another guy, but I don't know how or if Sam.
I don't know if he gets drafted this year.
Yeah, he may 6th, 7th round.
Yeah,
he's essentially. I want to say Joe Milton, but I just don't think that he's quite ready. I think if he gets drafted, someone's going to draft it and hope that the potential, he works a few things out in his throwing motion. He be able to have a little bit more touch on his throw, and he's a future guy, down the line. But I think Michael Pratt to me would be that guy. If we're talking late round quarterbacks that could potentially, like a Tyson Bagent actually have to start a couple of games because their quarterback got hurt.
Yeah, I like this one, and it's funny because he made some noise in the I think it was Senior Bowl or whatever, the Celebration Bowl, whatever it's called. And people like some of the tools. He had a touchdown pass in it. Spencer Rattler. I think some people still see the tool set. The dude is not the best athlete, but someone takes him day 3. He gets into a late season game where a team's struggling, and they're like, you know what, we're just gonna see what we have. The Denver Broncos, they don't get a quarterback, they get him, right? That's what I could see totally happening this next season. We saw a lot of QB injuries last year, so there's a potential. I mean, the other one, that Western Kentucky, they always seem to have someone out there. here's my question: Is do the Dolphins in the last pick that they have in the draft, do they take Tua's brother, Tulia?
They might. They
I
very
wouldn't
well
be
could.
surprised.
Yeah, Tua's
So
probably sitting there going, "Hey, I want him. I want him as
yeah.
my backup."
Yeah, that'll be perfect. All right. Well, how about this? Now, wide receiver is the other big, area right now. I think if you looked at tight end, there's quite a few tight ends that could be pretty solid picks. Brock Bowers obviously is the number one, but let's
Mhm.
look first at wide receiver, and then I'd love to get your pick on tight end or running backs after that of just a big. Hey, this is some of the big ones here, but. Obviously, Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, Ryan Thomas. I mean, there is a stacked
Yeah.
set of receivers. You've already mentioned that. Um, is there one of these guys that's getting it, a lot of buildup that you're not quite sold on?
I mean, it's Xavier Worthy.
I knew
Just because the dude, just because he ran fast, everyone is so high on Xavier Worthy that
hmm
people talk about him being, early 20th, 20 pick in the 20s, early pick in
hmm
the 20s. And for me, I have him somewhere around my 19th best wide receiver in this year's draft,
Wow.
which would probably put him somewhere in the third, potentially fourth round, depending on how many wide receivers get taken,
hmm
in the first 2 days. I think that there's a lot of good with the speed that he has, but there's also a lot of holes in his game where he's not the best route runner. He
Yeah.
has a
Yeah. Three
lot of
routes.
concentration drops where you got a guy that can take the top off the field, but he doesn't track the ball very well.
hmm
And he's 163 pounds.
It's pretty small.
Yeah. I just, and like I said, the concentration drops for me are the biggest thing is that a lot of times in these games, Texas, he makes these, great route, runs down the field, and just drops the football.
Yeah. Last year in the playoff game, he only had 2 catches for 45 yards. I mean, that was a good Washington defense that really did have a good game playing for him. Oklahoma State's defense, they went out and did the same thing. Did a good job limiting him overall to the big plays. His long was 54, but outside that, he had 5 catches for 30 something yards. So I don't know.
Mhm.
That's the one thing I would say. He consistently shows up in the stat sheet. Where a guy like Quentin Johnson last year, there'd be games where
Yeah.
it's like, dude didn't even. I mean, he ran 2 routes. It looked like, but
Yeah.
and he's the other thing is Xavier Worthy has done a good job of being consistently better, despite not great consistent quarterback play at Texas over the last couple of years. He has put up good
Mhm.
numbers. His touchdowns have gone down each year, and that always not a big deal in the college level, but it worries me if you can't find the end zone. That is the difference between like who would you rather have, like a Mike Evans or Chris Godwin? Mike Evans constantly finds the end zone. Part of
Yep.
it's the size, and that's not what we have here with Worthy. But I think
Yeah.
that was the one I wasn't surprised that you were kind of in on. But
Yeah. No, I'm out on
get
Xavier
out on.
Worthy, especially first round pick. Or that some of these people have him.
Yeah,
Like you said, I have him closer to my 20th best wide receiver and not my top 5 wide receiver.
yeah, that's probably more appropriate, and it was closer, outside the top 5. Right now, I had the Chiefs. A lot of people have the Chiefs taking a receiver because of the Rasheed Rice situation. They do
Yeah.
have Hollywood Brown on the team as well, but they still need
Mhm.
some receivers. And they did sign the Australian footballer. I'm not quite
Yes.
sure what position he's going to do, but
Hmm.
they have been linked a little bit to Lad McConkey. So
I like Ladd. I like the big thing I look for in wide receivers is route running, and
hmm
Ladd McConkey is a great route runner, and he didn't have to show it a whole lot in college, but he can play inside and outside.
hmm
He's a good enough, physical enough guy that he can go up and make catches on the outside, but he's also excellent in the slot with the route running ability that he had. And he didn't get a whole lot of hype because he couldn't really play across the middle too much because they had Brock Bowers.
Very true.
So
Yeah, he's gonna take up most of that real estate.
yeah, I think that he's a guy that's been underrated by a lot of people. You know, some people have kind of jumped on the train towards the end of the draft process, but yeah, he's someone that I think that he's going to be a better NFL player than he was college.
Yeah. Well, how about this? Is teams that are going to probably take a wide receiver maybe late day 2. So let's think late third round and on. What are some of those
Mhm.
sleeper wide receivers that people should be excited about?
Javon Baker from UCF. He started out at Alabama, didn't quite get his chance there, went to UCF and had 2 really good, productive seasons. He kind of has a little bit of an immaturity about him. I don't know if you guys remember watching the OU game. The guy catches the football, runs down the field, does the peace sign to the OU bench. That's Javon Baker. But he has a lot of talent, and he has a lot of talent to potentially be a number 2 wide receiver in the NFL. A Tez Walker from North Carolina. The combine gives and takes, and same with the Senior Bowl. It gives and takes, and he struggled with drops in both of those. But you put on the tape, and the kid's never had a drop issue. It was kind of like one of those things where the moment was just maybe a little too big for him. But we're talking about a guy that's about 6'2", 200 pounds that can run a 4.36. His average yards per touchdown in college was 30.
Oh, he's a big play.
So
big
play wide receiver. Someone's going to get him probably. I'm going to guess probably more in the 4th to 5th round, but a guy that has big time ability that said he could be a solid number 2, or just someone that can go out there and stretch the field for a possession type wide receiver.
Yeah, no, I like that. All right, so let's go tight end and running backs. Brock Bowers, of course. I mean, do you think that he's going to live up to the hype?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's George Kittle type guy, where he's a good blocker, really, good blocker, good kind of all over the place. He's maybe not as athletic as some of these other tight ends we've seen over the last couple of years, but he's athletic enough. He can go out, he can be your go-to wide receiver, and he can help you in the run game.
Yeah. Are there any other tight ends that you're kind of looking at? I mean, there's a big gap, big drop off between that, and then there's a couple that really just kind of clump together. Of hey, there's still potential there, maybe more of a blocker or tight or catching the back versus that.
I like Sennett from Kansas State because he kind of gives me that old school H-back feel where you can line him up as a fullback. Chris Cooley. That's who he reminds me of. Chris Cooley. If you remember,
slap a number 40 something on him and call it good.
Yep, a number 47. The guy, he can be your lead blocker, but he can also go out and catch the football. Yeah. And he's athletic enough to do that. I'm not as big. I had Jatavion Sanders as my number 2 tight end, but there's been some things that the more I've watched, the more I'm a little concerned about. Strength wise, for a tight end, it kind of worries me that maybe he's not that strong. So he's never going to be a great inline blocker. So it may end up being kind of more of a Brevin Jordan type guy where he's really only out there as a very big glorified tight end / wide receiver. Because I mean, he only did 8 reps of 225 pounds as a tight end. I have problems with that.
Was he given max? Sometimes I think those guys don't care, but I mean,
I hope not.
That's 2 45-pound plates from a guy who needs to be able to move some of the best athletes in the world. That's not a lot.
Yeah, so you put him on the in line and you're running towards him, may not be the best. The big thing for him is he is great in the open field. He's hard to bring down because he is super athletic at what he does. It's just the strength. So I don't know if he's a complete tight end, today's type tight end, like a Travis Kelce and George Kittle, Sam Laporta, Mark Andrews type guy.
Sam Laporta, man.
Yeah.
Fantasy draft, right? That guy, right? Just I'm having all these flashbacks to last season of how good he was.
Yeah.
So it does seem like the tight end is more of this is a depth position draft wise this year compared to some of the studs and stuff like last year. But
one other tight end to keep an eye out for is kid from Colorado State. I think that he has a lot of potential.
Hawker?
Yeah. Dalen Hawker.
Yes.
Yeah, he has a lot of potential. I think that being at Colorado State didn't really get quite the accolades, but you go back and watch some of his games against some of the bigger teams this year. He played really good and was one of their main weapons. And I think outside of Torrey Wilson, who's there, who I think next year is going to be a sleeper wide receiver. A lot of people will sleep on because he's from Colorado State. But I think that this kid has a chance to be a really good, solid number 2 tight end that can go out there. Like he's going to be kind of along the same lines as the Tavion Sanders, where he's not going to be able to be much of a blocker, but we're going to talk about a really athletic, really good receiving tight end.
Yeah, a passing game nightmare, matchup struggle. Like
Yeah.
who do you put on him? It doesn't ever work out. So, all right. Well, running backs. This is a position that's definitely not thought of as a top 10 or first round draft picks for reasons, right?
Yeah.
Is there someone you think that sneaks into the first round?
No, not this year.
Okay.
I don't think that there's that type of running back in this year's draft. I think the first one goes mid second round. I think Jonathan Brooks to me is clearly the best running back in this draft. But yeah, I just don't think that the caliber of running back is what it was last year, where we saw 2 guys go in the first round and we saw a couple other guys go early second round. Jonathan Brooks to me probably should be the number 1 running back taken. He may not because of the injury. So you may see a guy like Trey Benson go higher, something like that. But or even Jalen Wright, he's got a lot of buzz because of the season he had and the potential of the receiving potential. But yeah, this just isn't the best running back group this year. I think a guy that kind of gets a little slept on is Will Shipley from Clemson. He kind of gives me like an Aaron Jones type vibe where he's really good running back, but he's also a really good wide receiver. The kid had 104 receptions in college, averaged 6 yards per catch. In college, averaged 5 yards per carry, and is really good in the kick return game also with the new rules. I think he becomes someone that, the 4th, 5th round that someone's going to get, and that he may end up being a really good, second one running back.
And what a great mention right there, Tubby, of talking about the special teams is one of the places where a lot of these either maybe a late tight end or a late running back, some of the defensive backs, that's where you find that skill set come into play, because especially with the new rules, the adjustments, teams are going to look for those X factors, those people who can either create space. They're just, hey, instead of starting at the 25, we're able to get close to the 40 each time, because that is a game changer. And I think I'm just glad you brought that up, because a lot of people, I don't even often think of that until you're in the moment like, oh, I see now. I see what that was. So, all right. Well, offensive line. The reason why quarterbacks are so injured the last couple of years is how bad the offensive line has been. Is this a year to provide some help?
Yeah, this is the year. This should be the year. I should say this should be the year. There's a lot of. I mean, we're talking, man. If I'm thinking off the top of my head, we're talking somewhere around 7 to 8 offensive linemen taken in the first round. It's that much depth in this year's offensive line group that. I mean, then we'll see probably 3 or 4 taken in the first, maybe 20 picks in the second round. You're going to see a lot of offensive linemen taken because the depth is so huge at that position. I mean, yeah, probably got close to maybe 2 go in the top 10. Then you'll probably have 3 or 4 going, from 11 to 20. Then you'll have another maybe 3 go in, the 20 to 32 range.
Yeah, I definitely see that. It's a lot of these guys have been in the college for, they have a lot of reps, juniors, sophomores, some sophomores, mostly juniors and seniors. But a guy like Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma, we're Oklahoma fans, he's one of those that has slipped a little bit down in the draft boards to where he is now an early day 2 ranking. Now, offensive line, you got to have it. You got to protect the quarterback. Is this one of those guys? Is there one of these offensive tackles or interior linemen that someone's going to get a steal because they're going to fall? Or do you think that it's going to be an arms race to get into the first round and these guys are going to be gone? So if maybe your team's traded up to get one.
I think that Jackson Powers Johnson, the center from Oregon, is going to slip because it's a center. You don't typically take centers in the first round. We saw Tyler Linderbaum a few years ago get drafted in the first round, and it was a great pick because Linderbaum is one of the best centers in the NFL. But I think we're talking about a guy like Jackson Powers Johnson, who is not the most athletic, but he is a grinder. He's a hard nose. He kind of gives me that Creed Humphrey, Jason Kelsey type feel, where not super athletic, but he knows how to play football. He's super smart, and he's got that mean streak in him on that offensive line, and I
He
think
got
that's
that
something
dog in him.
he does, and that's something that I love in my offensive lineman. I want them to be mean. I want them to be nasty. I want them to
Yeah.
play dirty, because it's just those guys that don't typically they're typically aren't the best.
Yeah.
And I think that he has a chance to potentially slide into the middle of the second round, kind of like Creed Humphrey did, where a lot of people were like, man, he probably should be a first round pick with how good he was in college. I think that's what we're kind of looking at with Jackson Powers Johnson. I think that he could slide in the second round, and someone's going to get them an at least a Pro Bowl caliber center.
Yeah. Correct. This is my philosophy when it comes to the offensive line in the NFL. If you need to read, like if it's in shambles, like if you look at your team and say, these guys ain't it, if you want to reset the culture on the offensive line, you start with the center.
Yep.
You start, and people always want to start with the tackles, right? Especially, give me that left tackle to protect my quarterback. Nope. Give me the center that knows the schemes, that can help make audibles on the line. Like you'd say, Creed Humphrey, Jason Kelsey, he just retired, but those are the two centers that you look at. Who are the best centers right now? That's some of them right there, and they grind it. So I think Jackson Powers Johnson falls, but someone's going to get a good steal, especially if it's day 2.
Yep. And I mean, look at Tyler Linderbaum. I mean, you talk about the Ravens offensive line at that point was kind of in disarray. They, had Ronnie Staley, and he just couldn't really stay healthy, and he didn't really have a great right tackle or guards. They were decent. Zeitler was good, but they didn't go out and get the tackles. They went out and got the center part. The center, literally the center part of the offensive line. The quarterback of the offensive line, the guy that calls out the protections, and that offensive line last year was one of the better offensive lines, in the NFL. So, I absolutely agree with you. You start from the inside. I think there you got to have your leader on that offensive line, and it's going to be your center.
Yeah. All right. So if you're not protecting the quarterback, you got to be going and getting the quarterback as a GM. So those edge rushers and the defensive line, this is a really deep class in my opinion. Top is definitely there. You think of a guy who went to the championship game last year, who we talked about quite a bit in the college football world. Braylon Trice is not even in the top. He's not even a first round pick projected right now because of how many people outside even on the defensive side that are already going to be there. And he's not, and he's a junior. So like, there's still room for him to grow. But give me who are some of the key ones you are most excited about that are going to go get the quarterback?
Yeah. I mean, Dallas Turner's my top edge rusher in this year's draft. I think he has the potential. You just look at the tape and you look at the size comparison and everything. He reminds me so much of Will Anderson, his former teammate. He has that potential to go out there and just immediately be a really good edge rusher and potentially win defensive player of the rookie defensive player of the year. Laiatu Latu, UCLA kid, he retires, neck injury, Washington, comes back UCLA, and all he does the last couple of years is lead the college football in sacks. He has a lot of upside. The injuries scare me a little bit because of it being a neck injury. Kind of worries me, but I think that he is such a smart player. He's not going to be the most athletic, but he knows how to use his hands. He fights hard. He is a very strong edge rusher. So I think those two are the top of the class. I think that if we're talking defensive tackle position, I think that initially I was like, I'm not so keen on the defensive, the interior part of the defensive line. And the more I've watched and the more players I've looked at, the more I'm like, okay, this defensive tackle group is actually way deeper than I think a lot of people give it credit to be. Because, you may not have the super high-end top guys. You got a guy like Jerzon Newton who is a little undersized, but he has one of the quickest get-offs in the inside that he's going to disrupt a lot in both the run and pass game. But you got guys in the second, third, fourth round, like a Mason Smith, who has just huge upside from LSU, was one of the top recruits out of high school. A guy that I'm super big on is Chris Boyd from Northern Iowa. He absolutely went in, destroyed everyone at the East West Shrine game,
Mhm.
and he's 6'4", 320 pounds. Got overlooked because he was at Northern Iowa. He's going to
Mhm.
go probably fourth round, and someone's going to get a potential starter in the fourth round. Future starter at defensive tackle, Muhammad Kamara, Colorado State, another Colorado State kid. He is a defensive end, but the motor, the strength, the pass rush repertoire that he has, the, he's going to be another guy. We're talking about fourth, fifth round. That someone's going to get a really good rotational guy
Mhm.
on the edge, because you can never have enough edge rushers. You never have enough defensive ends, and he's someone that I think that he could be super productive. He kind of reminds me of like a Marcus Golden, and it may not be the most, the biggest name, but Marcus Golden. Go look up the numbers. Marcus Golden has been a really good backup edge rusher who has, he's had a couple 10 sack seasons
Mhm.
because he's just one of those guys that just goes out there and plays hard every single down, every single play. And that's what Kamara reminds me of. I mean, granted, not a great offensive line, but go watch that Colorado game and
Mhm.
how much he disrupted that team, that
Terrible offensive
offensive line, and put so much pressure on Shedeur Sanders. And then when he got kicked out of the game, how much
It changed.
better Shedeur Sanders was.
Yeah.
And that's what a guy like him he can do. Maybe not quite to that caliber like he was in college, because like I said, he's not the most athletic guy, but he's a guy that's going to go out there and play hard, and he's smart, and has a really good pass rush repertoire. So, yeah, a late round guy that I think that could really help out someone's defensive line group.
Yeah. And for people who may not know this, the defensive line in the NFL as it stays right now is one of the most constantly substituted positions. One, because sometimes guys, these are big guys,
Yeah.
and the situation doesn't call for the big guy, it calls for the pass rusher. So you get a lot of these late round picks that they're gonna find themselves in position to make big plays at big moments in the NFL in their first season. So I think that's, and like you said, a guy who all season long in the college, T'Vondre Sweat was everywhere. He dominates. This is a third round guy. It looks like right now, possibly a third round guy, just based off some of the other stuff. But that's how deep this class is. Because normally, I think in a weaker class, you wouldn't see that many. You wouldn't see a guy
Yeah.
like that. That
Yeah. I mean,
that.
his teammate Byron Murphy, he's going to be a first round pick, and we didn't even talk about him. I mean, he's a freak of nature.
Mm-hmm.
His size, the speed. I talked about Jerzon Newton's get off on the offensive line. Murphy's right there with him. There's a play against Washington in the playoff game
Mm-hmm.
where he just absolutely blows between two of the offensive linemen and is in Michael Penix's face in a blink of an eye, and it was just because how fast he was able to get off the snap. And you're talking about the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line, and you got two or three guys on that offensive line that's going to be drafted probably in the top 3-4 rounds. So
Yeah.
yeah, he's another guy. Like you said, when I first put on the tape, I was like, man, there's just not a lot of defensive tackles I like in this draft, because there was a lot of guys that stayed in college that probably could have came out and made this even bigger depth, and they probably saw something I didn't see at first, and they're like, hey, next year I have a better chance of going a little bit higher, and it won't be as congested. And the more I've watched, the more there's a lot more guys. I mean, Brandon Dorless is another guy from Oregon who he just kind of fell under the radar, but he has absolutely killed everything this offseason. And you go back and watch the Senior Bowl, and I think for me, the Senior Bowl is one of the biggest things. I have seen a lot of guys over the last few years watching the Senior Bowl that aren't going to be the biggest names, and we're going to see them go, day 2, day 3, second, third, fourth round. But Tank Dell was another guy that I found last year watching the Senior Bowl, watching him run routes. And so if you're watching and you want to see like depth guys for drafts next year, go watch the Senior Bowl. Watch the Shriner, the East West Shrine Bowl game. They show you a lot of guys that maybe you wouldn't know about, but now you do, and you go, man, that's a great late round pick.
Mm-hmm. Well, so we talked about a lot of the positions that have a lot of depth, and people should be excited that when they hear that position called for their team. Two of the ones that I think a lot of people aren't looking for the depth this season, where we have seen maybe in the last couple, is linebacker, and then you not saying edge rushers. That's a different category, but specifically those linebackers and safety. Would you agree that this is kind of a weaker class, or you see some potential playmakers out there that
So
can
I
make?
think the linebacker group is top heavy. I think you got 3 or 4 guys that are going to be good NFL guys. I think you got one that's actually my favorite player in this year's draft, and it's Edgerrin Cooper.
Let's go A&M right there, represent.
Yeah, I love what Cooper does. To me, I think that he's going to immediately be a top linebacker in the NFL once he gets in. He's going to probably go second round, mid round, but I think that the linebacker group, linebackers aren't as sought after anymore like they used to be.
It's like running
But this
backs.
is it definitely is just like the running backs. But this kid he's different because he does everything. I'm not going to say he is Micah Parsons. It's not what I'm saying.
Micah Parsons.
When Micah Parsons came out, he was looked at as a middle linebacker, but he's also looked at a guy that you go, man, he can get you some, pressure off the edge. That wasn't what he was mainly going to be known for. And I'm not saying that Cooper's going to put up the sack numbers or whatever, but he's somewhat similar to him. A Levante David, I think, is a great comp for him. That is a really good, run stopper, really good in the pass game, in coverage, but can also, blitz or come off the edge and make some plays also. I think he's going to be an incredible player. But Junior Colson is another, really good player. Peyton Wilson from NC State, I think, is another linebacker that has a chance to really be good. He just has to put on a little bit more muscle, a little bit more weight on him. But I think that he's a hard-nosed, he goes out there, super instinctual player. But yeah, the safety position to me is the weakest of, I think, all of them this year. I'm really big on Tyler Nubin, but that's about it in this year's draft. I think Tyler Nubin, he didn't test as great, with the combine and all those other stuff, but you put on the tape and the kid is just super productive. He can cover, can, hit you, you coming across the middle. He's going to he's going to lay a lick on you. He's going to be able to help you in the box in the run game. He reminds me of Jesse Bates, who, one of the better safeties. And the other one I'm big on actually is Jaden Hicks, is kid from Washington State. I talked about him before the combine.
Yeah.
I wanted to see him go out there and be able to show he can be, a little bit more fluid, and he's done that. And you go and put on his tape and you watch, some of these games like against Wisconsin this year. Yeah, Wisconsin's not the biggest, the best team that they played, but that kid went out there and it was one of the best tapes I've seen from any of the safeties this year. Him being able to dominate that game and, separate the receiver from the football, intercept it, come down in the box. He's a big boy too. He's like 6'2", 6'3", 220 pounds. He's going to come down. He's going to be able to hit you, but he has enough fluidity to play over the top if, if he's playing in the slot or something like that.
All right. Well, that leaves the big question. I know everyone's at home wondering is, does Tory Taylor get drafted out of Iowa? The punter who set all the records, who is the pride and joy of Iowa over the last couple of years. Well, one of the pride and joys. Does he get drafted?
Yeah. Someone's going to take him.
Yeah. Who? You got to tell me who's drafting a punter, and tell me it's the Raiders. I think it should be the Raiders.
I mean, the Raiders definitely probably would. I could see that, but I don't know. I don't know exactly who. I mean, someone's going to take him though, because that's a weapon. That kid is a absolute weapon in the punting game. So I think that he's going to get drafted at probably 6th round at the highest, mid 6th round.
A team with a young quarterback, you go get this guy, because we talk about these quarterbacks that are going to be playing. Maybe they don't have a good offensive line. You need to control the field. So, I don't know who the punter is for the Chargers, but I could totally see it. By Jim Harbaugh, he says, listen, we're going to take a running back, we're going to take a tight end, and we're going to go out there and we're going to run the ball 60% of the time. You know what? I got Justin Herbert, so we're still going to throw the ball enough, and we're going to try and pin you deep if we do get caught. And all right, I could see it.
Yeah. Hey, he knows him pretty well.
Yeah, that's very true. You've seen him quite a bit. I really like that idea of getting a punter. There you go.
hey, flip the field position. That kid can do it.
Yeah, you limit the other team's play call sheet if you are inside the 10. Or
Yeah.
inside the 5. It really just makes it tougher and helps your defense be a little bit more focused, on what's out there. So,
Mhm.
how much of the draft are you planning on watching?
I'll watch every single pick.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, what else? What other way would there be?
Yeah, I don't. I watch it all. I'm in it. I'm. I've got my sheets and stuff. I'm like, yeah, nope, they messed up there or whatever. I'm giving. I'm going over my grades and stuff beforehand. I'm all for it. I watch every single minute of that draft.
Now, for those who are like, "Oh, I'm curious what Tubby says about the picks," do you like tweet out those reactions or anything like that to any of those, the big ones?
No, no, I haven't done that. Maybe I should this
Yeah, if you
year.
did, I'm sure people would be like, oh, "Okay, see, Tubby was right. He said I saw the episode on Sunday. They said don't pick this guy, and here we are." I
Yep.
could
Hey,
see that.
know.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, it's draft week is huge. Detroit has done a great job, I think, of putting it on, partnering with the NFL. I love that they're going around and they're putting it in different cities. And last year it was with Super Bowl champions in Kansas City, so there's so much momentum there. Detroit is one of those two teams right now in the NFC. I think that, well, I'll say three teams: San Francisco, Green Bay, Detroit are the three teams that everyone's like, look at the talent, look at the momentum
Mhm.
that these teams have going into next season. So I think it was a great. I don't know if it was coincidence or what, but for Detroit to have it, I'm excited to see what it looks like. Just even from a perspective of watching it, last year I
Yeah.
got to go to it, so
Mhm. I mean, next year's in Green Bay.
dude, you gonna go? You
I,
might, you might make it happen, man.
I will try.
Yeah. That would be pretty insane. So, any final thoughts you have on the drafts or any draft week prep? Any things? Who do you want the Packers to take first round? What position?
Man, it's tough. They have a couple positions. I think that they could use another offensive tackle, and there's plenty of them in this year's draft. I'm a big fan of Cooper DeJean, the corner from Iowa. I think that he could,
Like that?
because he is such a versatile player. He can play corner, he can play safety. Packers need corner or safety, so there's that. And then also he is a really good kick and punt returner, so he kind of gives you a little bit of everything. I think if they're going to go with someone, and typically it's so hard to decide who the Packers are going to pick, because most of the time no one's going to know except for the Packers. A lot of people will try to mock this, that guy. If they I think that there's a guy, Graham Barton, Duke offensive lineman, because the kid can play tackle, guard, center. Packers love versatility along the offensive line, and I think that's someone
Pays
that
off.
they could target. And would I be surprised if they went linebacker early? We've seen it a couple years ago with Quay Walker. Maybe they do it again and go out and get a guy like Edgerrin Cooper, who they're really high on.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I figure the Chiefs will either get receiver or corner early on. McDuffie, not being there anymore. That's going to be a small spot that they'll look to fill. But I don't know. I feel pretty good about it overall. The Chiefs, I trust that. It's nice when you can look at your GMs and say they're not going to screw this one up. Or at
Yeah.
least their record shows that they shouldn't. Right? Like there's a good chance. When you have a talented team like the Packers, like the Chiefs, and we mentioned the Lions too, the 49ers, there's some teams out there that you're not looking for a Caleb Williams, the guy, or the
Mhm.
Drake May who has to be it. The Trevor Lawrence when he went to Jacksonville. You're not looking for
Yeah.
that. You're looking for complementary pieces that can hopefully get you back to a deep playoff run.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that another position for the Chiefs that may sneak up in the first round could be an offensive tackle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, their offensive tackle play, they really did struggle with some consistency and some penalties, some dumb penalties here and there. I could see that too.
Yeah.
With the
It
investment
depends.
that they took last year, that's why I'm like, I don't know if they'll go first round, but we'll see.
It depends on how much faith they have in what Wanye Morris can be,
Mm-hmm.
and depending on who could potentially be there at that position. If one of those offensive linemen seems to fall down the board or something,
Yep.
maybe they sit there and go, okay, that's our guy. Let's go ahead and take him.
Yeah, love it. How excited is your dad as a Bears fan to get Caleb Williams right now?
Oh, he's super excited.
Yeah, is he
He
sad
was.
about Justin Fields leaving?
Oh no, he was like, get him out, give me Caleb.
Yeah, that's awesome. He should be
Yeah,
excited.
Yeah, I mean, big upgrade. If they're smart, they trade that 9th pick, get extra picks. You only got 4 this year.
Mm-hmm.
Trade that pick. I don't care who it's to. Even be into the division. If somehow you can get extra picks for this year's draft, 2nd round pick that you don't have this year, do it because you need to build up a little bit more around him. Unless somehow Joe Alt or Marvin Harrison Jr. fall tonight. Doubt either of those happen. Joe Alt,
Oh, man. Yeah,
Joe Alt
Harrison?
I don't. Hey, there's a lot of people that did not like how he handled the offseason. And that
I know. I heard that too. I'm taking him. Not even thinking twice.
No, absolutely. And then also it kind of depends too, like how things work at that. The draft really starts at 4.
Yeah.
Does maybe it's not a smokescreen. Maybe the Vikings do move up and they take him. So now you're looking at the Chargers and going, okay, yeah, we can take him. But there's a lot of these GMs that actually think that Malik Neighbors is the best wide receiver. So maybe they're one of those teams. And the Giants are like, well, we need an offensive lineman because we drafted, Evan Neal a couple years ago and he's terrible. So now we need another offensive lineman. Let's go get Joe Alt. The Falcons are sitting there, something could happen. They take an offensive lineman. You never know.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. I think that's funny. Evan Neal, poor guy. The Giants haven't done a whole lot that's right.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. I don't remember. Where did Evan Neal go to school?
Alabama.
I thought that. I just didn't want to assume. Okay, that's good. I feel good about that. Yeah, that's an Alabama lineman.
Alabama lineman.
Yeah. Well, everyone, I mean, unless you got anything else before we sign off.
I don't think I do.
Incredible job, man. The prep that you put into the
Appreciate
draft
it.
season, combine season, it is insane. And I hope you all really just appreciate what Tubby puts on because he cares a lot and he has a lot of fun with it, which is what sports are all about. It's about having fun. So if you're not having fun with sports, take a step back. It's okay. Take a breath. Have some fun. I think it'll be worth it in the end. So that is the podcast. So if you have not already, please consider subscribing to the show on YouTube. It would mean a lot. We're almost at 300 subscribers, and that would be super, super cool to make it that way here in the month of April. So we would really appreciate that. Share it with someone who maybe isn't already a part of any sports podcast world because it's a lot of fun. And then you can follow us on any of the social media. So you can search at the W Sports Podcast. And then, hey, just, look for Tubby as well out there because on the X Twitter world, because maybe he does start to tweet. I don't know. He may not. But if he did, wouldn't you want to know? Wouldn't you want to know, people?
Maybe I'll throw some stuff out there. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. But it's going to be a great draft week. We'll have all the recap, all the grades, some of the what were they thinking? Why did you take Clifford in the 3rd round? I think it was when it was for the Packers last year. We'll have a lot of that kind of
round.
Stuff. 5th round. Thank you. And just like that was a weird pick, or just hey, this team is set up to run next season, go worst to first. So it'll be a lot of fun. Can't wait to do it. Till then, we'll see y'all next time.
See ya.
See ya.